Welcome back to another fun-filled show. I'm your host, T.S. Blanchard, aka Free Blanche, aka Blanchard Adamas, aka Blanchy Kruger. Let me fix my hat real quick. And today's title is World War III, the War of the Mind. World War III, the War of the Mind. Everybody's been preparing for World War III, but this war, I assure you, is not going to be on any battlefield. It is going to be in your mind. Romans 12:2 says, and be not conformed to this world, but be ye transformed by the renewing of your mind, that ye may prove what is that good and acceptable and perfect will of God. For I say, through the grace given unto me, to every man that is among you, not to think of himself more highly than he ought to think, but to think soberly, according as God hath dealt to every man the measure of faith. Be not conformed to this world, but be ye transformed by the renewing of your mind. So we see that conformity to the world goes against mind renewal. Mind renewal leads to being born again. You have to be born again to get to heaven. So we know that conforming to this world goes against your mind being renewed. What is a renewed mind? A renewed mind is getting your mind back to where it's supposed to be. When you have a subscription to a magazine or something, you renew it, it's already something previous. So when we talk about renewing the mind, you had a previous mind. Remember that God knew us before we were in the womb. So you had a previous mind. So in your previous mind, you thought a certain way. Now you don't. So your mind has to be renewed. So what I'm telling you all is that they are not going to have a World War III. I've told you all that I'm convinced there are no nuclear weapons. I'm also convinced that everything you see out there is an illusion. You know why I say that? Because the devil wants your soul. So I don't care what they show us. What's the end result? The end is the devil wants our soul. That's what the devil wants. So you have Christ coming to save and the devil coming to steal, kill, and destroy. Or kill, steal, and destroy. So I'm telling you all that what they are showing us is not true. You know how we know it's not true? Because it's always doing this. You and I know that when something is truth, it stands firm, it's solid, it doesn't move, it lasts forever. What they're feeding us goes like this. I'm gonna give you an example of what I mean right now. I need you all to remove your emotions and just simply take what I'm saying as me trying to shed light to what's going on. I'm going to show you all this mind trickery in real time. Watch this. Just listen, watch.
Mr. President, your supporters are hurting. People who voted for you 3 times, who would walk over Legos covered in hot coals to vote for you, are broke. Some are skipping meals. Others are buying canned chicken in bulk because that's all they can afford. The cost of food and gas is just so high. People are finding it impossible to pay for their kids' after-school sports once they fill up the car with gas. People who support you and support the war in Iran, who were willing to pay a little more to make sure our grandkids don't have to live with the threat of a nuclear-armed terror state, who were willing to pay a little more for the possibility of reshoring our great manufacturing base with tariffs, well, they've paid all they can. Some are expressing anger and frustration. They feel that they voted for you to bring down the costs. Others are just quietly skipping meals. And
I want you to think about this woman is Jewish. Now, I want you to think about her telling the world how important it was for the U.S. to stop Iran. Listen to what I'm telling you. All the Jews were saying that Iran was the greatest threat on the planet. We got to stop Iran. Now she's saying that the people that voted for you can't afford to do this any longer. So what is she saying? She just said that it was a terrorist state with nuclear weapons. Now she's saying the people can't afford to do it. So what is she proposing? What is she proposing that Trump do or does? What does she propose that Trump does? You begged for the U.S. to do something with Iran. Now it's being done, and now you're complaining. So what do you want Trump to do? This is what I mean by psychological warfare. I told you all, they're going to present two ideas to you that contradict each other. Two ideas that contradict each other. Rose says she don't know. So if she doesn't know, then why is she speaking? If she doesn't have the answer, then why is she speaking? This is the same woman that says how the Jews basically started the civil rights movement, the left, all that, the Jews. Heavily involved, overly represented, all of this. My question for her and Jewish people is, if the left supports communism, socialism, globalism, and all these bad things, why are you all supporting them? If the left supports everything that because we've seen, think about it, the Nazis were socialists. Hitler was a socialist. Mao was communist. That's the left. Socialism, Marxism. So why are y'all supporting something that has caused all this catastrophic damage globally? I'll tell you why. Because it's psychological warfare. And I used her as an example. Somebody just said in the chat that even this video looks AI. It does. What I'm trying to tell you all is that the devil wants your soul. So I don't care if there's 0 nukes in the world or there's 1,000. It don't matter. You know why? Because the devil wants your soul. So everything they're doing is to get you to not trust God. What does she want Trump to do? Let's continue.
contrary to what some in your administration keep saying, it's not just vibes. Inflation is eating up wage growth and then some. Gas is $4.50 a gallon as we head into the summer travel season. The producer price index is up 6% as we head into grilling season. Savings are at an all-time low. 13% of credit card balances are now over 90 days delinquent, the highest since 2011. You keep saying that the stock market is doing great, and that is true. But the gains of the economy and nearly all consumer spending are concentrated in the top 10%. Everyone else is broke. You keep saying that gas will plummet when Operation Epic Fury is over, and there's a new memorandum of understanding on the table. But even if there is a deal, it will take a lot of time for gas to come down. And in the
So again, young lady, this is what I'm telling you all. This is psychological warfare. She is telling you two things at the same time. We need Trump to continue the war, but the American people can't afford it. So what do you want Trump to do? What do you want Trump to do? This is how people's minds are getting warped because they're listening to something. There's a literal contradiction. Then I'm going to go back to the point. Why are 70% of Jews Democratic? Why are they on the left? If the left represents the greatest threat to Jews based on historical facts, if the left represents the greatest threat to Jewish people based on historical facts, then why are 70% of Jews Democrat? Do you understand how you have two ideas that contradict each other? And I'm using her as I'm using, what's her name? Batia, whatever. I'm using her as an example because somebody sent me this video and I was like, this don't make any sense. This don't make any sense.
Meantime, the American people need something to get them through the slog. Your supporters need help, Mr. President, and they need it from you. We brought in $200 billion in tariff revenue. Couldn't some of that be shared with Americans struggling to put food on the table?
Combat Medic said we export more oil than we import, so why is our gas so high? The gas is high because that's how they set the market. What's funny is the market isn't actually a physical thing. It's just people doing something to the market because they're responding to something that they know people are going to agree with. Thank you, Ms. Reed. It's cap. It's cap. It's cap. So we see the markets manipulated. First, they're going to tell you that the Jews are on the right. They're not. The majority of Jews are liberal. The majority of Jews vote Democrat. But the left, what the left encompasses is the greatest threat to Jews based on history. Two ideas that contradict. And I know I'm going to be called anti-Semitic, but it is what it is. We're going to keep going.
Mr. President, your supporters are One of the things that feels like it's in flux is how Americans feel about Jews. A few weeks ago, a Lebanese immigrant drove a car full of explosives into a synagogue in Michigan, where 140 preschool children were skipping around and playing. By the grace of God, the explosives did not detonate, and after a shootout with security guards, the terrorist took his own life. At no point...
How convenient. How convenient. You mean to tell me a non-American Lebanese terrorist couldn't perform an act of terror? You mean to tell me a person that specializes in terror couldn't perform an act of terror? Let's continue.
Before we learned the terrorist's name, did I, or I bet any of you, think he was a white supremacist? That's because anti-Semitic violence, like most political violence in America, now comes from the left. Indeed, the left rushed to explain and excuse this terrorist's actions. His family members were killed by an Israeli strike in Lebanon, we were told by CNN and the New York Times and NPR, all of which failed to mention in their headlines that his family members were also terrorists.
So, tell me, when was the right terrorist? Can someone tell me when the right was terrorist? The Ku Klux Klan isn't on the right. The KKK isn't right-leaning. The Black Panthers aren't right-leaning. So give me a right, because she just said that the terrorism was historically on the right. So show me what on the right was terrorizing Americans. What on the right has been terrorizing Americans? Booker T. Washington was on the right. Du Bois was on the left. Joseph H. Jackson on the right. MLK on the left. So tell me, in American history, when has the right terrorized anybody? But she just said it. Again, two ideas that contradict. All of the terrorism comes from the side that they support. Now, they're supposed to have the highest IQs, but something ain't adding up. Because if black folks was doing this, it would be called low IQ. But Jews are doing it, and nobody says a word about it. If black people, which they do, support everything against them, one of the things they said is they dumb. They got low IQ. The Jews do the same. Remember I told y'all that the Jews and the jiggities and the bleeds got the same spirit. Remember I told y'all the jiggities and the bliggities share the same spirit. They both support a side that hates them. Let me start over. Listen to what she said.
One of the things that feels like it's in flux is how Americans feel about Jews. A few weeks ago, a Lebanese immigrant drove a car full of explosives into a synagogue in Michigan, where 140 preschool children were skipping around and playing. By the grace of God, the explosives did not detonate, and after a shootout with security guards, the terrorist took his own life.
How could a terrorist, a person that specializes in terrorism, attacking children, fail? These are the same terrorists that were the masterminds behind 9/11. You're telling me that a terrorist attacked a school with children, 140 of them, and didn't kill a single one. I'm not saying I want it to happen. I'm saying it doesn't make any sense. You're attacking children. They kill adults easily. They can't attack children? You mean to tell me these are the same people that did October the 7th? So the October the 7th people was able to do that, but then when it comes to the children in Michigan, they're unsuccessful. Make it make sense. Two ideas that contradict each other. It doesn't make any sense. They're over there making nuclear weapons, but they can't have a successful attack against children?
At no point before we learned the terrorist's name did I, or I bet any of you, think he was a white supremacist. That's because anti-Semitic violence, like most political violence in America, now comes from the left.
She said now comes from the left. I want her to tell me, when has it came from the right? See, what happens is they tell a lie to justify an allegiance to something. So they say, historically, the right's been this way. That's why we're on this side. But historically, it's not true. It's not true. Let's continue.
Indeed, the left rushed to explain and excuse this terrorist's actions. His family members were killed by an Israeli strike in Lebanon, we were told by CNN and the New York Times and NPR, all of which failed to mention in their headlines that his family members were also terrorists. Why was the left explaining away anti-Semitic terrorism? Well, it's because anti-Zionism has become as central a component of the left as climate activism.
How did we jump to anti-Zionism? That's all she just did. How did we jump to anti-Zionism being on the left when 70% of Jewish people vote Democrat? Listen, this has to be said. 70% of Jews vote Democrat, but she's saying the left is causing all the problems. You have to make this make sense because black people get condemned for doing this very thing. And rightly so. Black people get condemned for voting against their best interests. So Jewish people are doing the exact same thing, but moms is the way. Thank you, JV Chanel, because the devil is of confusion. So anytime we see confusion, we already know it's the work of Satan. You got a Jewish woman talking about the war in Iran is too much. The same Jewish woman that said the war in Iran is necessary is now saying it's too much for the American people. So now you care about the American people. Now listen, America's been saying we don't want to go to war. Matter of fact, they said we voted for Trump to not go to war. But when Americans were saying that, you weren't speaking on them, Batia. You didn't speak for them then. So why are you speaking now? When Americans said we don't want any new wars, you didn't say a word. But now that Americans are saying we can't put food on the table, now you want to be an advocate. Again, two different ideas that contradict each other. Anytime we see confusion, we know the devil is at work. And folks are going to get mad at what I'm saying, but I don't separate the people. They're all in the same boat. Because it's the Christ way or it's no way.
Indeed, celebrity climate activist Greta Thunberg herself now does more for the Palestinian cause than the climate, appearing everywhere ensconced in a keffiyeh. The majority of Democrats now sympathize more with the Palestinians than with Israel in a shocking reversal that took place over less than a decade. Just 17% of Democrats now sympathize more with Israel.
Why would the left sympathize with Israel? Like, you listen, let me say this. You can't brag about a high IQ and then be stupid. I'm sorry. What makes you think that the left would support someone that's not a victim? The Palestinians are seen as the victims. This is what the left does. The left will look at Israel looks like this, Palestine looks like this. Just based on appearance, the left is going to choose Palestinians. If they go to a middle-class white neighborhood and then look at the ghetto, they're going to choose the ghetto. That's what the left does. So why would you think the left is going to sympathize with Israel when the Palestinians are the quote-unquote victims? And they got brown skin. And they're poor. High IQ, but can't think. LARPing for Cash said the Jews were supporting the left as a majority even before the state of Israel was created in 1948. It doesn't make any sense. You got to make it make sense. The first thing someone would tell somebody black is you are voting against your own interests. So then why are 70% of Jews voting Democrat? Why are they on the left? It doesn't make any sense. You know why? Because the devil is the author of confusion. That's why. And that's all this is a bunch of confusion to get you and I to forfeit our soul. Till we get to a point where we say, you know what? What can we do about it? Nothing. Let's just give up.
It's especially startling for American Jews, given that for 100 years now, they have voted overwhelmingly for Democrats. American Jews have been famously at the forefront of every liberal cause in America. They were overrepresented in the civil rights movement, as public school teachers, in the labor movement, as champions of civil liberties, and in the gay rights movement.
So If the Jews are overly represented on the left, then who can I blame for the destruction of America? If the Jews are overly represented on the left, if the Jews have been overly represented in all of the movements on the left, then who can I blame for the destruction of America? I blame black people. I blame liberal whites. I even blame conservative whites. I blame immigrants. But for some reason, if I blame the Jews, I'm anti-Semitic. Let's continue.
Nearly 60% of American Jews view pursuing social justice as one of the most central components of their Judaism. And yet, what has been their political home has become infested with a hostility to Jewish interests.
What is essential to American Jewish identity? 59% said working for justice and equality in society. We know that that's bad. So you have the majority of Jewish people supporting with their vote the destruction of America. And no one is getting on TV, and Charlie Kirk said it. Charlie Kirk talked about this. He was the only brave one that would say it. Enough damage has been done. Stop. %70 of Jews vote Democrat. 59% believe that their identity is linked with justice and equality in society. Again, two ideas that contradict each other. Daniel said, fund both sides, you always win is the thought. That's exactly what it is, Daniel. Daniel, that's exactly what it is. It's being on both sides. And I noticed this during debates. If it was two Jews debating about Israel and Palestine, the word anti-Semitism never came up. If it was two Jews debating on Israel and Palestine, the word anti-Semitism never came up. But if it's a Jew versus a non-Jew having a discussion, anti-Semitism. If it's two non-Jews talking, anti-Semitism. But if it's two Jews, no anti-Semitism. Let's continue.
The term Zionist has become a slur used as Jew once was on the left. Left-wing spaces have closed their doors to Zionists completely, which basically means that they have closed their doors to proud pro-Israel Jews. Under the guise of being anti-Israel, the left has become a no-go zone for Jews unless they are willing to denounce their own people. Sadly, many have taken them up on this humiliating offer.
70% would, listen to what she just said. 70% of Jews are willing to denounce their Jewishness to be on the left. She just said if they denounce their Jewishness, they can be on the left. 70% are voting Democrat. So that means that the majority of Jews that vote, that are voting, will pick the left ideology over them even being Jewish. That's a problem. That's a problem. That's the same thing the blacks do. That's the same thing the Bliggitties do. Remember I told y'all they share the same spirit. They share the same spirit. The Jiggities and the Bliggitties, they share the same spirit.
The stark reality in America at the end of the first quarter of the 21st century is that most Jews are Democrats, and yet the left has turned on the Jews. How did we get here? That's what my new book, The Jews and the Left, is about. It's about why Jews became Democrats in the first place and why the left turned on the Jews. This was not a foregone conclusion that the history of America and its Jews would lead to 100 years of voting for Democrats. America has always had a unique relationship with Jews. In 1790, President George Washington wrote a famous letter to what he called the children of the stock of Abraham of Newport, Rhode Island, promising that here bigotry would be given no sanction, persecution no assistance. In the letter, he explained that Jews, as all other Americans, would be treated as equals. It was a monumental moment in the history of the Jews. But even before that, from the minute the first Jews...
Was George Washington a Democrat? Let me see. This says that George Washington did not belong to any political party. Wow. I don't know if I like that or don't like that. I don't know. He wasn't on the left or the right. And what did he stand for? Sound like another setup to me. He wasn't Democrat or Republican, huh?
Stepped foot on these shores, they knew that after millennia of persecution, they were finally home. The Jews and the Left is a tale of love and betrayal that begins in 1654 and ends in the here and now, explaining one of the great mysteries of American political life. If this sounds intriguing, I hope you'll order a copy. It comes out next month.
Now, does she sound conservative to you? JV Chanel says Zionism is infiltrating the churches like communism did. Listen, there should be no ism in the church. I'm sorry. There should be no isms in the church. There shouldn't be. I don't care what the ism is. Zionism, communism, Taoism. I don't care what's in. None of the isms should be in the church. None of it. The church should be about the word of God and believers gathering to worship, to pray, and to learn. None of the isms should be in church. And I guarantee if the isms get into your church, you have some bad theology. If some isms get into your church, you got bad theology. Stem says, you call yourself whatever you want, but things you support would be your convictions. When Black people say they are Christian and support antichrist behavior, they are antichrist. I agree. I agree. Thank you, Miss Goldie. My bad, Miss Goldie. Only baptism. Amen. I like that. No isms, just baptism. Amen. There should be no isms except baptism in the church. But I just think it's just crazy. I was sent this video and I went to Batia's page and she got this whole thing about Jews on the left. And I'm like, what made you think? Like, it doesn't even, like, think about what the left has represented for a very long time. So there's no way you could have told me with the highest IQ that you didn't think the left, that you wasn't going to be the left. And you still can't tell me what group on the right was terrorizing anybody in America. What right-wing group has terrorized Americans? Who? They weren't established, Blanche, in the ways we think of them. They were only patriots and Tories. That makes sense. Social justice is not of God. God is the ultimate educator. Amen. Yeah. So the point I was making with those examples of her was that she is speaking out of both sides of her neck. On one hand, she's condemning the war. On the other hand, she's saying the war is necessary. On one hand, she's saying, I'm going to speak for the people. On the other hand, I'm not speaking for the people. What I'm trying to tell you all is this is done on purpose. It's not by chance that people, they're not stupid. They're not, no, it is psychological warfare on your mind because the devil, all he needs you to do is just believe one lie. And I know it sounds simple, like I'm oversimplifying it, but all the devil needs you to do is just believe one lie, one thing that's not true. Also, I don't think Washington was elected. You have to see if he was a Federalist or an anti-Federalist. Technically, they were all leftists because they rebelled against the crown, or more so liberals. Bingo! Bingo! Even the formation of America is a left-leaning idea. And we know this because the Statue of Liberty is the symbol for global socialism. Literally, it's globalism. So when George Washington says you can come here and not be persecuted, that is a liberal. Because I can't guarantee your safety in a country because I can't guarantee how the folks will respond to you, nor how you respond to the people. Because the premise is that you're automatically good. I reject that notion for anybody. The premise is because you're being persecuted, you're automatically good. I reject that. Bad stuff happens to bad people all the time, and it goes for everybody. So this notion, because black folks were enslaved, they're automatically good, is a lie. I would even venture to say that the fact you were enslaved speaks to your character. Stimulated students is a genius. He's a genius. The formation of America is liberal. They rebelled against the crown. And every act of rebellion that we've seen in our lifetime has come from the left. Because what the right does is just not support it. They won't attend it. They won't watch it. They won't pay for it. The right just won't associate with it. But the left will make a demonstration. Tish said, all social issues come from the misconception that people are inherently good rather than depraved. And that's the premise that is the lie. That's the lie that people believe. Most people believe that people are inherently good, except white people. J.V. Chanel said, and then on top of that, Protestants and offshoots left the Catholic Church and came to America first. Tell me in the Bible where God said rebel. Tell me in the Bible where God said protest, rebel, march, riot. Tell me where. The Bible says, let your nay be your nay and your yea be your yea. Tish said the last ones to engage in slavery and the first ones to abolish it. Let's continue. You know, I was sent this video. People always send me stuff. And it just had me thinking, you know, and it just had me thinking, but I was sent this video and hope it doesn't bore you all. I thought it was excellent, but I'm gonna be skipping through it and maybe continue on the next live. But you see what we've also done when it comes to religion is that we've given an option for another way to God. So Christ says, no man can get to the Father but through me. So that excludes every other religion. So the problem is that people believe that these other religions are worshiping the same God, and they're not. You cannot reject Christ and accept God. It's impossible. Well, technically, stimulated students, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, they didn't kneel, but they took their punishment. They walked into the furnace. Listen, they took their punishment. I don't think about it. We're not kneeling. We'll walk to the furnace. That ain't left. That ain't a liberal. That's extreme right. That's extreme right hand of God. That ain't liberal. If they were liberal, they would have riled the people up. They would have had some signs. They would have been crying. They would have been running around. They're ripping off their clothes, their robes. Let your yay be your yay and your nay be your nay. Listen, we ain't gonna make a big scene. We ain't gonna do it. And we're gonna take our punishment. But anyway, this guy in this video, and this is what I mean, scrapping beauty. This is what I mean, scrapping beauty. Badia said that the all the hate and racism and stuff came from the right. But she's not going to be able to name any right-wing groups that was doing it. What right-wing groups was terrorizing America? Who? Who? So she tried to say that the reason why Jews are Democrat is because the rights were racist. I'm like, okay, show me where the right was terrorizing anybody. Communists on the left, socialists on the left, Marxists on the left, globalists on the left, KKK on the left, Black Panthers on the left, BLM on the left, Nazis on the left. They were socialists. So everything that's quote unquote detrimental to everybody's on the left. Feminism on the left. Ms. Reed says, so I said, you know what's even crazier is that Jesus Christ died for all people, and that's not in the museum. It's true, it's not in the museum. AI is on the left. Everything's on the left. Everything bad is on the left. That's why I was telling y'all, I was seeing the same thing on the left, now on the right. I saw the same talking points, same playbook, same plays, same script. First, the woman said, we got to de-arm Iran. We got to fight Iran. Now she's saying the American citizens can't afford the war. But when the American citizens said we voted for Trump to not have a war, she didn't say a word about that. Now she's speaking up for the citizens now when it comes to it's just confusion. And God's not the author of confusion. Let's continue.
His interview here on Brighteon.com. This is a really critical interview with a guest that was incredibly popular when I interviewed him remotely. It's Dr. Michael Nels, and he's the author of this bombshell book that is a must-read. It's called The Indoctrinated Brain. This is available at booksellers everywhere, and there's also an audiobook version available. This is from Skyhorse Publishing. And Dr. Nels now joins us in studio. He's made a trip to the United States, and welcome to Texas, Dr. Nels.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you very much for having me again. Now in person, it was really a pleasure being here.
It's great to have you here. And the interview with you, it really altered my understanding of neurology and also how people's brains and personalities and decision-making has been hijacked and controlled by very dark forces. You want to give us a quick overview of what your book is about, what your work, your research is about?
Yeah. So my background is actually in immunology. I did a PhD work there, discovering by genetic research and molecule that is responsible and required for the adaptive immune system. That's the way we essentially adapt to viruses and be more efficient in fighting them naturally, of course. And then I turned to another immune system, the mental immune system, which is essentially under attack when we develop Alzheimer's, when we lose our ability to think, to memorize, and many other attributes which are human and important for humans, to be curious and to go new ways and reflect on things. And of course, our ability to memorize everything that we learn. And I also realized very soon that even for thinking, it's required that we are able to memorize. So our whole individuality is dependent on memorization. So I worked very hard on understanding what is necessary that we can memorize things throughout our lives, because Alzheimer's is not a natural development. It's absolutely unnatural and caused by our way of life, our modern way of life.
What, exposure to toxins and inflammatory factors, or what?
Exactly. And also, even though we live kind of prosperous in the, let's say, in the global north, we still have a lot of deficiencies. Like, for example, vitamin D, which was actually.
So so we can kind of speed it up. The premise, so the title of today is World War III, the War of the Mind. So this guy right here said something very powerful. He said that Alzheimer's is not natural. Alzheimer's is caused by how we live in this modern world. So he believes that Alzheimer's is on purpose. They're attacking us in all these ways to get us to forget. Now, I was thinking, okay, you said at the Reagan Library? Is that in DC? Okay, so I was trying to figure out how people are acting like 2020 never happened. And he's going to talk about it, but he says, in order for you to remember something, you have to have an emotion attached to it. So he basically said that emotions are what give us the memory. So if an event happens, the emotion of the event locks it into our brain forever. So he talks about how they're purposefully taking away the memory. It's a direct attack. It's being done on purpose. So I try to figure out, I say, how are people running around here like 2020 didn't happen? Then I thought about it. Think about what was 2020? What were most people trying to do in 2020? What was their ultimate goal? They were trying to get back to normal. Everybody was trying to get back to normal. So that means they was passing up all of the nuance of the whole situation, and they were focused on getting back to normal, going on vacation, going back to work, working in the office, getting out of that. Everybody was focused on getting back to normal. So they missed the entire COVID Peter pandemic. They missed everything. Some of the students said Alzheimer's is pretty much just diabetes of the brain. Diabetes is caused by poisoning, metabolic dysfunction. I agree. Ms. Goldie said, I've said for years Alzheimer's exists to disconnect the young from the old at the most detrimental time when knowledge of the past should be passed down. Amen. And this guy was like, it's being done on purpose. Alzheimer's is being done on, it's an attack. They got us worried about nuclear weapons, but they're attacking the mind. Let's continue.
Deployed it in 2000 to develop a program that is unheard of, this experimental vaccination program with genetic material was only possible because we have a deficiency in vitamin D. So this deficiency in vitamin D, which I found out is also a cause or a cofactor in developing Alzheimer's. So a level, for example, where Alzheimer's is essentially as low as the likelihood in developing, and the level that we have in Germany, for example, I come from Germany, in the winter we have like 25 nanomole, in summer we have an average maybe 40 to 50, but the healthy rate would be 125. That is what we measure in tribes, for example, in Africa, people who live in the wild and live naturally. This is in a natural way of living, not protected from the sun in houses, not protected by sunscreen,
right?
Not living too far in the north and having no food which supplies the vitamin D. We have a deficiency, and between the 25 we measure in older people on average, and the 125, which would be normal, we have a 70% increase of our risk in Alzheimer's.
Yeah, I'm so glad you're covering this. You know, I've been talking about vitamin D for 20 plus years and the chronic deficiency of vitamin D, but especially in North America and across Europe, those with darker skin pigmentation, right? Because they have a natural sunscreen that blocks the production of vitamin D in their skin. And yet, you know, their ancestry, let's say a Black American today, their ancestry might be from some country in Africa where they were much closer to the equator.
Exactly.
They had much higher exposure and they were generating much more vitamin D. Now they're living indoors. They're working in an office environment, typically, let's say, and nobody's explaining to them why cancer rates are higher among Black Americans and why prostate cancer is more aggressive or breast cancer is more aggressive.
Absolutely.
So, but you're focused on then the cognition effects that vitamin D deficiency causing Alzheimer's.
It causes Alzheimer's. It's not the cause of Alzheimer's, but it's one factor, one of many factors, and that's just one example of deficiencies that we have.
Now, you hear what he said about Black people? Now, again, you got two ideas. You have Black people being deficient in vitamin D, and you have Black people also saying that their skin is magical. You have Black people saying their skin is magical, but the science says they're vitamin C deficient. Now, remember, Black people used to say, I don't want to stay out in the sun too long and get too black. And Black folks wonder why, like he said, they have the most cancer. They have the poorest health. Black folks are running around saying we are gods on the earth, but they have the worst health. So, again, two ideas being presented that contradict each other. Much like the Badia woman saying the left has turned on the Jews, but the Jews vote 70% Democrat. Two ideas that contradict each other, but that's the purpose of it. Because God is not the author of confusion. So if God's not the author of confusion, then who is the author of confusion? It's Satan. It is a literal psychological war they are playing on our mind. They are telling us one thing and doing something totally different at the same time. Let's continue.
Have in our modern life, but we don't, the law of the minimum applies. Things that are lacking is our problem, but also the law of the maximum applies. If we eat things that are not healthy for us in higher quantities, sugar-containing products, for example, leading to glycation of proteins and even the DNA in our cells, these glycation products lead to an activation of the immune system. We call them advanced glycation end products. The receptor for advanced glycation end products activates the immune system because it's almost like you have a piece of wood in your skin. You know, it's something which shouldn't be there.
Yes.
The immune system tries to attack it, gets not rid of it. We have a chronic inflammation, and chronic inflammation shuts down the relevant part or the relevant function of the autobiographical memory center where Alzheimer's starts.
Wow.
And I actually have a picture of that. Maybe we should look at this.
Yes.
Just to give.
Please bring that up. We'll show that next. But one more comment before we get to that. I recall from our last interview, and I suppose I can only recall it because I don't have the highly inflammatory neurodestructive.
Tish said Blacks need to be in the sun for hours to absorb enough vitamin D due to the level of melanin, sickle cell, anemia, and other issues due to indoor lifestyles nowadays. Again, if you believe something is not true, then the devil has you. So Black folks have been convinced they don't need to do anything extra. And think about this now. This has been intentional. Somebody said, let's tell Black people they are like this so that they don't do this. It was done on purpose. All this double speak is on purpose. It's being done on purpose. It's not because people are stupid. No, it's being done on purpose. It's intentional. It is psychological warfare. Somebody said it. Thank you, Tierra. You got a sunscreen product with cancer-causing chemicals in it. Two things presented to you that contradict each other. This is how the devil works. You got a box of cigarettes. The cigarettes calm your nerves, but they cause cancer. You got calm nerves, but you're in a hospital bed dying. It's safe and it's effective. Let's continue.
Processes that you've referred to. But I recall that you said that the hippocampus is the one region of the brain where neurogenesis continues to take place at any age.
Exactly.
And I've been thinking about that. There are many things that you said in the interview that really altered my understanding of the world around us. One of them being how easily that globalist forces can hijack human neurology in order to control people and to induce things like fear as a means of control. They're sort of weaponizing our neurology against us. But in all the things that I have experienced in terms of learning at my age, in my mid-50s, like, learning, doing Rubik's Cube solving. I do speed cubing now. I solve the cube. That would not be possible without the hippocampus and neurogenesis, correct?
Well, there are certain physical skills you might be able to learn without it.
No, but I mean, it's cognitive.
Yeah,
right?
I know
you
it's
have
cognitive,
to
but just to give an example, there was one famous patient which actually led to the discovery of the autobiographical memory being in the hippocampus. And this patient...
I'm going to fast forward a little bit.
Little alien fingers that could just brrr like that.
Yeah.
So I'm never going to beat those kids, but...
Yeah, the brain is like a sponge. But to be honest, these cells that I'm showing here, this is a piece of the hippocampus here.
Yeah.
And this is from animals, which are actually old animals, like 2-year-old mice. They are correspond to an 80-year-old human.
Really?
Mice only get about 2 years old. Old, really old, and they die of age. So they have a very fast life, so to speak.
So you call those index neurons?
We call them, I call them index neurons. These neurons, which you see, the green ones here, these are stained because they have certain features. They are newborn. They are newly born in the adult stage. So you are like 80 years old and you produce still these cells. In humans, it's possible. About 1.5% of all hippocampal cells can be generated new every year.
Really?
And are added to the hippocampus. And you need these cells because otherwise you wouldn't be able to memorize new things without overriding previous experiences. And these.
So this hippocampal, whatever this gene or gland or whatever this is that's in the brain, it's responsible for memory. So he's going to talk about how they're trying to attack that. They're trying to get rid of that. And as you all have said, that what happens is if you forget, you cannot pass down information to the next generation. So that's the purpose of it, is to get people to forget and to not remember. And he even talks about a guy where the doctor removed too much of his brain and the guy learned how to play the piano, but he couldn't remember how he learned how to play it. He knew how to play it, he just didn't know how he learned it. So he talked about how you can learn something, but you want to have any recollection as to why you learned it. So think about a time when it's working on people and people are believing and following a false God or following an antichrist, and they don't know why they're doing it because that memory is gone. They just know I'm supposed to follow the antichrist. So the guy knew how to play the piano, but he didn't know how he learned how to play the piano. So again, this is the level of warfare that they are subjecting us to. They're attacking the mind from every angle. Convenience destroys memory too. Yeah. You should be writing. Y'all should be, make sure you're writing, reading. You should be all these things, trying to learn another language, solving problems. All this stuff should be done and physically do it.
Nerve cells are required to retrieve the information once you have stored them. So every day you store information in the hippocampus, and you store when you have learned something, what you have learned, where you have learned it, and how it felt. Very important.
The emotional impact.
Without emotion, you wouldn't memorize anything. The emotion is really the key for things to enter the hippocampus and stay there.
So this is why strongly emotional events make a much stronger imprint on the neural network.
That's actually used against us. If you have the fear mongering, then everything will be memorized.
Right.
And if you memorize it without the presence of index neurons, then you start overriding.
This also, I think, doesn't explain.
So you heard what he just said. So imagine them. Now think about this now. What would be more powerful? For an event to actually happen, or for them to stage an event or events and have that control people's minds? Because they're telling us all this stuff for a reason. The news is the news for a reason. They get on TV and talk for a reason. Remember, they said that if you don't get that shot, you wasn't going to live. If you go around people, your family, you're going to kill them. If you're around children, you're going to just think about all the fear associated with what was going on. Even to where on CNN, they had a ticker on the side that was like COVID deaths. And they ran it 24 hours a day. I'll never forget, I had a friend of mine said, man, I was watching that all day long. I was watching CNN. He said, I went to bed. He said, I had to cut it off. I said, man, don't watch that. It's not real. They got a ticker showing you the COVID deaths. But the woman already said, the health secretary, medicine, I don't know what title was in Illinois, but the lady already said, if you had COVID at the time of death, it was a COVID death. So just think about how many folks probably had it and died. How many folks die in the U.S. today? Let's see. How many people die in the U.S. today? So think about this, y'all. Let's just say roughly 8,500 deaths a day in America. 8,500 deaths every day. So it ain't hard. It ain't hard to make the numbers go up.
Why so much of marketing and advertising is all emotional.
Absolutely.
Now, instead of informational, they're not telling you, oh, here's a car and here's the car's properties and here's why it's better. Now it's just, you should feel good and then here's a car.
Exactly. So what you have to experience and the emotion doesn't stay in the hippocampus. Every night it's uploaded in the neocortical, let's say, hard drive. Really? And only the location and the time stamp of the memory stays in the hippocampus. And this time and the location neurons, the space neurons, the time and the space neurons, they together form an index for the memory that has been uploaded and be retrieved again.
Oh, interesting.
And these time and space neurons, these are the green ones you see here. They are newly born ordered every year, and they essentially are required to memorize when and where we have learned something.
Huh.
So if you block this production, you stop memorizing things. And if you block it for a long term, that's what you see in Alzheimer patients. They suddenly don't know how to get home again from where they have been.
Let me ask you something.
They have no feeling anymore for time and space.
I often listen to audiobooks when I'm doing work on my ranch.
Mm-hmm.
And I might be driving a tractor, driving a vehicle. And then I hear something in the book. My brain ties it to that location because the next time I come back to that spot, I involuntarily recall what I heard from the book when I was at that same spot. Is that kind of what you're talking about?
Exactly. I remember about 2.5 years ago when I was working on this puzzle, what was happening to us, the world society in the last 4 years, since 2020. And I spent 2 years figuring it out, and I didn't come up with the final idea. And I remember it was almost like yesterday. I stepped out of a shower in a vacation home we had in the Cross Island in the Mediterranean, my wife and I.
Yeah.
We just came back from a hike, I took a shower, was thinking about this whole issue, what was happening the last 4 years. And I can tell you on which step of the staircase when I went down, I had suddenly the idea how everything fitted together, how to solve the problem, the puzzle actually, how all the puzzle pieces, which individually didn't make any sense, suddenly came together seamless, and I had a complete picture in front of me. And that's what actually led me to write this book.
And so that realization was so emotionally positive for you that it was imprinted.
It was
into your.
It's unbelievable. I mean, every second of the thought process was.
I has the Force, and I think in one of the later movies they came up with something. They introduced the concept of, I think they called them midi-chlorians. It's supposed to be some. I was almost wanting to call them superpowers because it is pretty impressive.
It's a superpower. It's the superpower which made. But it's fun.
What part of the brain does the simulates the world? Because there's and I'm good at this, doing physics simulations in the brain to consider, like, if I do this, these things are going to happen, or if this happens, this is going to happen. Surely there's like a simulation.
That's the hippocampus.
That's the hippocampus.
Yeah, because it's not only let's say, an image of the real space and time.
Yeah.
So the hippocampus ties all our memories, everything that we have experienced in the space-time continuum. Yeah, the 4-dimensional space-time continuum essentially is represented by these index neurons.
Okay.
Yeah, the space and the time neurons.
Okay.
So it's space and time, and everything that happens in space and time. But even future events, plans, things that we plan, are essentially memorized by new index neurons. These are virtual space and time neurons.
I mean, I don't want to nerd y'all out, but basically what this guy is saying, he's talking about why this is under attack, because this memory process in our minds is essential to not only how we pass down information, but also how we process present day information to even compare it to a past experience. So imagine if you don't have any references in your mind, if you don't have any references of this was bad before, it's not good now. This is what I talk about, being under a strong delusion, because it's spiritual. So imagine, for example, you have all of these Jews voting Democrat, but they can't even tell you why they vote Democrat. They're telling you that the left has turned on them. So why are you voting? They don't even know. Black people, why y'all voting Democrat? They don't even know. We're getting to the point now where people are just operating like bots. They don't know, because they don't have a reference to reference anything against it. Like, okay, I'm doing this, but what is telling me this is bad? They don't have nothing. And I believe a lot of it is from those shots. I believe those shots did a number on these people. It did. Because I look out here in this world and I'm like, there's no way we could have gone through 2020 and y'all are still listening to the media. You still trusting everything you see. You still don't think none of this stuff is a conspiracy. Like it's just amazing to me how we went through all of that and like folks act like it never happened. It's actually scary. Imagine something else happens and you're like, listen, y'all, we did this before. We've been through this. Remember they did this? And they be like, no, I don't remember none of that. If you talk to the average person, your experience of 2020 and 2021, 2022, your experience is going to be totally different than the majority of people's. Those that were like conscious when it was going on and awake and saw what was happening, your experience is 1,000% different than everybody else's. Neek said our toilet paper is causing us cancer. I need to buy me some new toilet paper. I'm glad you said that, Neek. I need to get that natural toilet paper. Get the good toilet paper. Quay, this is on. I can send it to your DM, but this is on Brightreon, and it's Dr. Michael Nails, author of The Indoctrinated Brain. So it's on that episode, but I can send you this link. But it's Dr. Michael Nails, Nails spelled Nehls, and the author of The Indoctrinated Brain, and reveals terrifying blueprint for the globalist assault on our neurology. So this guy has cracked the code, and this brought, to my mind that this is World War III. World War III is the war of the mind. That's what they're fighting for, our mind. They're not, all this stuff is a formality. What they want is this. Because they got this, they got it all. But Dr. Michael Nails, this is Brightreon.com.
Of future events. And when we try to execute this future event, if we try to follow a plan, then these future space and time neurons become more and more active because we are closer to the goal.
Wow.
Yeah.
What about when dreaming? Because when you're dreaming, your brain is creating a simulated environment, including other characters and their dialogue, and it is projecting onto them their thinking, even though they're not real, but even the physics of the world, everything, waterfalls, whatever. I mean, think about the complexity of how the brain has to generate this simulated world.
Yeah, and make it conscious.
And bring it into your consciousness.
Yeah, and even if we dream, it's there. It's actually quite interesting. We remember a dream when we wake up during a dream. Otherwise, we wouldn't remember.
So and lucid dreaming.
Yeah.
I can't believe that the host didn't know this. Like, it's common knowledge that you remember the dream if you wake up. If you don't wake up, you're not going to remember the dream because you dream every night. You only remember the dream when you wake up because you dream every single night. You just don't remember it because you didn't wake up. When you wake up, you remember the dream. I can't believe the host didn't know this. He's talking about lucid dreaming. That's what he's talking about. If you're actually dreaming, you're in that REM state and you wake up, you're going to remember the dream.
Yeah, any dream, if you have a nightmare and you wake up, that's usually why dreams are usually not very happy dreams, because the nightmare would maybe wake you up because it's not unbearable for you what you experience.
And you're saying in that moment, it's still in your consciousness, and that's how you remember it.
It's still in your consciousness, but it's also that the hippocampus wakes up and the index neurons start to memorize the last part of the dream.
Okay,
that's why you always remember the end of the dream, but never the beginning.
Interesting. Well, what about one time I woke up, this happened once in my life that I remember many years ago. I woke up and couldn't remember who I was. It's like all those neurons were frozen for a moment or something. Like I did not know my identity or anything for a few seconds. And it was a terrifying moment, by the way. And then everything came flooding back, all my memories of who I am.
It's almost like you boot a computer.
It's like a reboot. Yeah.
It's like a reboot. I do this actually every morning. I mean, I'm doing.
So I think I'm going to come back to tomorrow and finish this because it was a pretty good video. just based on what he was talking about, basically saying that they're trying to give everybody Alzheimer's. Listen, on top of cancer and all the other stuff, but they're trying to get to the mind, though. They are trying to get to the mind. Thank you, Cruise Missile, for the super stick. I really appreciate it. Thank you again, Cruise Missile. Thank you so much. And then one more time, thank you, Cruise Missile. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much. Always supporting. Thank you. Tish on IG said, when the studies came out, you think the left would stop advocating for the shots, but I still hear leftists saying they want more vaccines for their children. It's crazy. Tartaria is a really crazy story. I don't know about Tartaria. Blanche, do you believe in Tartaria and erasure of older cities, erasure of older American cultures and technology? I'm going to say this, right? After watching this guy, if they wanted to make us forget something, I don't think it would be that difficult for the masses. You remember Men in Black, they would say something and then flash that light. I mean, I'm not saying they're doing that. I'm saying they are bombarding our brains. Okay, just think about your average day, right? You wake up in the morning, probably look at your phone. They're already downloading stuff into your brain. You go on the road, you look at signs, you look at billboards, they're already putting stuff. Like, just think about, you're never not being fed something unless you go out into the wild. We're constantly being fed something from this quote unquote machine or this system. We're being fed something constantly. And so the only way to not be fed is literally just shut this stuff off and not watch it and not look at it. But I believe if you consume enough of this stuff out here, you're probably going to forget. So if you think about it, it would be easier to erase people's memories when they knew less. So for example, during that time period, folks didn't know but maybe, let's say, 4 or 5 things. Let's say they knew 6 things. It's kind of easier to erase 6 things versus now people know 700, 800 things. No, just a theory. I don't know. I don't know if it's real or not. Tartaria is real or not, but if it was real, I see how they would get rid of people's memories. I see how it could happen. But I think we know a lot more now. We're in an information age. And so now they have to get a bit more, I won't even say extreme. They have to get a bit more tactical. So like say we're watching a sporting event. If you look at a sporting event, think about all the imagery on a sporting event that's not about the sport. Like, think about what they show you at a sporting event, even the commercials, even this. Like, think about how much you consume that's not the sport. I'd venture to say the sport's probably about 30% of what you consume. 70% is all the other nonsense, whether it be advertising, messages, announcements, whatever. You know, it's most of what you're consuming is not from the actual sport. Nick said the Super Bowl, exactly. LARPing for Cash said, if you want to see one of the most amazing places you ever have seen, look at old videos of Germany before World War I, 1914. I need to look that up. Janan TV said, Bland, people don't remember things that happened 2 days ago. Were you right about that? Listen, I can't argue with that. You're right. I can't argue. Nick said that weed is causing memory loss too. So listen, y'all, I'm gonna come back tomorrow and finish this up. Thank y'all for tuning in today. I love y'all, and I will see y'all soon. Thank y'all so much for keeping the show going with your commentary. I'm truly blessed to have a smart bunch of people that come into my to come on my lives. Trust me, these other shows, it's a box of rocks in the comments. A bunch of box of rocks is in the comments. I really appreciate you all having some thoughtful commentary, intelligent commentary. Listen, I love y'all, and I will see you all tomorrow. Thank y'all so much.